We are here for the regular Monday podcast. I hope you guys are having a very sexy start to today. If you're coming to this one live, would love to know you're here. We're going to be starting in a couple of minutes, and at the end of our 21-day challenge, I am super freaking pumped to get back cracking in the lead up to Christmas. So if you're coming into this one live, guys, you know what to do. Good morning, Tez. How are you, legend? Love to have your company this morning, pal. We're going to be starting in 2 minutes, guys. And what a beautiful Monday it is. I'm hoping that it stays like this because I've missed this sun over the last couple of days. Every freaking time that I come back to Oz, it seems to get a little bit shitty with the weather. But hey, this is looking good. What a good start. Look at all these guys and girls coming in. Hello, Xanth. How are you? Nicky, friend. How are you, buddy? I hope I don't know if you're training this morning, Nick, but I was going to do a session pretty much soon after this. If you're around. If sexy is a dressing gown, I'm here for it. I love that. Perfect. Good morning, Ash. Love that I catch you at the weekend as well. Cherie, I've missed you this time round, girl. I hope you're well. Shanti, what's going on, girlfriend? Should I say a new power couple? There's a few of them, isn't there? Good morning, Kenny, or rather evening for you, buddy. I hope you're well, guys. We're starting in 1 minute. Hello, Les. I hope you're having a beautiful start to, or rather end to your weekend. Jules is here. Hello, Jules. Lovely to have your company here. Hello, Jojo. Clint's here as well. Morning. What a few mornings. Amy Hart's here as well. All good. Guys, we're starting in 30 seconds. This is going to be, I think, probably a little bit of a lighter episode. We've gone really super deep, but value nonetheless. I left my bloody earphone somewhere. Yeah, that sucks. Hello, Phil. How are you, mate? I hope you're good. All right, guys. I think with 23 people watching live, we are ready to rock and roll. Let's do this. On the count of 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Welcome back to the Better Body Academy podcast. This is the podcast that you come to when you are sick of those darned old shitty diets and really unsustainable workout programs. Coming off the back of the 21-day challenge that we've just run for both a bunch of challenges and clients, you might have just given yourself an insight into what simplicity looks like. You know, in this podcast, we're going to discuss a few concepts, but I just want to say, you know, if this becomes overwhelming and complicated, it's going to have that inherently in it. You're just not going to be able to be perfect all of the time. But if you make it even more difficult through trying to be like, I don't know, just like everything ducks lined up, it just never works. Firstly, I do want to start the podcast by thanking everyone that came out to see us, obviously that lived locally on the weekend. We had a bloody great stomp. It was really cool. I think there was probably maybe 40 or 50 people there for the stomp. We didn't even hardly take any photos. It was just really good chats, really good connection, really good coffee. I appreciate the hell out of you guys for coming out to see myself, and yeah, it's really appreciated. It's quite humbling, actually, to be honest. Congratulations also to everyone that participated in the challenge, whether you decided to kickstart your journey after this or not, or whether you're just going to kind of live it on by your own. Super proud of you. It was, for the guys that got to the end of it, really a really good push. And it was great to see the connection of our community and what actually happens when, you know, you surround yourself, I guess, through the right people. I kind of sometimes regret not living in Australia full time because I think, you know, our impact and penetration into this market would be ridiculously big if I was here permanently. But that's the way it is. And finally, before we kick this episode in, I want to shout out to anyone that lives on the Central Coast, Sydney, or even close by. If you haven't yet been to Nico and Alex's Hatted Restaurant, Osteria Ilkoshia at Edelong, they are now doing a la carte, and it is unreal. It just got hatted. This restaurant is unbelievable. So if you've not been to it yet, I went in there yesterday, and it was just unreal. So wanted to give that a bit of a plug. Guys, today's episode, we're going to be talking about analogies of all things. And it'll become apparent why. An analogy is, just for definition, a comparison between two completely different things. And the purpose of using an analogy is for trying to explain an idea, right? So if you explain an idea with an analogy, usually it's because one topic is a little bit simpler to grasp than the other topic. Maybe it's because the simpler topic is more commonplace. Most people would understand it, and it helps us to explain a more difficult concept, such as something from the fitness industry or something from mindset. And the reason I do this a lot is for good reason. I think that a lot of stuff that you see in the fitness industry, especially around weight loss, changing body composition, it's just like, it's really difficult to understand it. You know, I've got a tertiary degree in this stuff and years of experience. And if I can take an idea and just mull it down to something a little bit simple that you can grab onto, this is going to be the thing that's going to lodge in your mind. You're not going to remember all the biochemistry, and you don't actually need to. And if anyone has ever done this before and tried to go down, you know, Dr. Google, Dr. YouTube, it tends to make things worse. It becomes information overload. It appears that people seem to contradict each other directly, and you end up saying to yourself, well, what's actually true here? Now, you might ask yourself, well, is this podcast that important? I want to tell you why clarity is important. In my opinion, belief is one of the most important determinants of whether a man or a woman is successful in weight loss. Okay? It's the most important. You have to believe in your coach, you have to believe in their model, and you have to believe, and this is the part that a lot of people don't think about, you have to believe in yourself. So there's three parts to it. You have to believe in your coach, you have to believe in the model that they're teaching you, and you have to believe in yourself. If these three beliefs are present, your transformation will be real. And equally, if something there is missing, generally people struggle. So what determines whether someone has strong belief in themselves or an idea? Well, in my opinion, it's the level of evidence they have to support that idea. Let's talk about, for you to believe in yourself, you need to have proven to yourself over time that you can trust yourself. And if you have evidence of having done hard things, then you believe in yourself because you've done it before. So you've stacked up the evidence. To believe in your coach, you firstly need to trust that you have seen enough proof from that coach of those things working in order for you to be successful. And in believing in the model that we teach here in Better Body Academy, people need to have a basic understanding of why our ideas work, why they are so very different from much of the fitness industry, and therefore giving you conviction in this. But if you don't believe in it because we haven't done a job of explaining it, it's likely that you won't get 1,000% behind something. And this is where metaphors come in. They help me take a hard to understand idea and they break them down into a framework that can be lodged in your mind that you can relate to and understand. If you can understand the slightly simpler metaphor, the idea that I'm going to teach is going to be more relatable to you. And once that's lodged in your head, it's not going anywhere. So with that, I'm going to give you a handful, maybe 5 or 10, depending on the time, of, I think, my most important metaphors and the ones that I use all of the time. And I want to use these to try to explain a couple of, just really difficult concepts. So let's just get stuck into some metaphors. Number one, I think, is the overarching metaphor, and that is the awareness switch. The awareness switch. I think that a lot of us are stumbling through our lives. I want you to pretend that you came and stayed over my house, or I came and stayed over your house because I don't live here, and I need to get up in the night time for a pee, right? And I can't remember, this actually happened to me the other day. I can't remember where the toilet is because I've stayed in so many different houses over the last couple of months. I don't know where I am. And so what happens is I get up in the night, it's pitch black, and I can't find my way to wherever the toilet is. This is where a lot of us are with our health journey, right? Where padding around. Does anyone feel this? We're padding around in the dark, trying to go like, what am I meant to do? How's the best way to do this? What's the best diet? We're Googling, and we're padding around in the dark. And what ends up happening is people join Better Body Academy. They get these incredible results, and then they get to the end of it, and they say, I can't, like at the end of a year or so, and I can't really explain how I got the results. And it didn't feel like what it's meant to feel like, really hard grinding work. Yes, there was work involved, but the weight seemed to just kind of leave almost a little bit easier this time. And so you ask yourself, what's actually happened? What's happened is the awareness switch has been flicked on. Because you're in the company of other people that are doing it, and you're being drip fed this information on a slow basis, it's the equivalent of your friend coming up and going and flicking on the light switch. And it's probably more of a dimmer switch than a light switch. This is the light of awareness coming into your life. So what's happening is you're becoming more self-aware, and you're becoming more awareness of the tools that are out there for you to change your life. And it's like it slowly comes on. And all of a sudden, you're like, like things just seem to be happening easier than ever before. I call this the awareness switch, and it's like a dimmer, and it just slowly comes on, and it's illuminating your path now, so you're not tripping over the same things over and over again. Number 2, your body is a bank account. Your body is a bank account. I had one of the girls, a couple actually, message me over the weekend and say, hey, Jace, we're not really following the plan this weekend. We're having a few wines. And I said, interesting. It sounds to me that you're following the plan perfectly. So what do I mean by this is, the body is a bank account. Think of it almost, rather than I can only do good things in my transformation and try to be perfect, which is ridiculous. The body is a bank account. It's composed of deposits and withdrawals. What are all the types of deposits that you can make? Well, you can go to the gym, you can have an active day walking, you can have some difficult conversations that have been pending for a long period of time, you could do some meditation, you could do some relaxation, you could have a really good meal. Equally, there are some withdrawals you can take. You can have yourself a good few glasses of wine or a bottle. You're going to go out and have a very long lunch. You can have a very inactive day that's not really relaxed, but it's just sitting down binging on Netflix. You could do a bunch of different things. But rather than thinking of perfection, what you should think about is my bank account balance, because my body's a bank account, will grow if there's more deposits coming in than withdrawals. It doesn't have to be just deposits. If I said to you as your bank account, how do you grow your bank account? You'll say, well, if I accumulate basically more than I spend. And that's the same with the body. And this gives us permission to be able to have, whether we call them naughty moments or naughty days or whatever you want, I don't care, but they're a withdrawal. And if at the end of the day, the deposits outweigh the withdrawals, you will go the direction that you want to go. Does this make sense? And this is freeing. It creates liberation for me. And this is what the fitness industry, in my opinion, should be talking about. Changing tact. I want to talk about metaphor number 3, the skinned orange. This one's really, I think it's important. The skinned orange talks about, okay, so everyone wants to lose fat, right? And so have you ever got like an orange or a mandarin where you removed the outer skin of the peel, and then almost like the orange or the mandarin was rotten underneath? And not even rotten, just like, you know, like the oranges that are like really dry and don't really taste like anything. So I want you to think about like how that looks when you open it up and it's kind of like shriveled and dry on the inside. I think that this is what a lot of people are setting themselves up for when they don't include strength training as an important component of their weight loss journey, their transformation journey. Yeah, great. Okay, we can remove the skin, which is the fat. We can remove it from the outside. But underneath that, you're going to have some sort of body composition. And when you remove that fat, it shouldn't be removing fat at all costs. If it's done in the right way, we're removing that outer peel, which is the equivalent of the orange peel. We're removing that out of it. And what we want to see is underneath, we want to see, fresh, healthy, bulbing flesh. And that's what happens when you include resistance training in your diet plan. It can't just be, okay, I'm just going to starve myself of calories, because you will lose the outer skin. The peel will come off, but underneath it, you're going to have this pretty crappy, rotten fruit. Does that make sense? Okay, number 4 is the engine upgrade. It kind of goes hand in hand with the previous one, is that most of us are just, as we get older, losing muscle mass by a process called sarcopenia, which means, in Latin, muscle shrinking, sarcopenia. If we do nothing to arrest that loss of muscle mass, this is going to get worse. Our weight gain is going to get worse. So what we actually need to do is give our engine an upgrade. We need to take it from the fact that it used to be like a Ferrari when we were 20 years old. It slowly over the years dropped away to become its current status, which for most people is a lawnmower. We're still feeding it the same amount of petrol that we did when we were a Ferrari. And now we've got a lawnmower, and that's why we're putting on weight. We're just not burning the same amount of calories at rest. So it makes sense then that the only way to change that is to upgrade your engine. Once again, how do you upgrade your engine? Resistance training. It is the only type of activity that's going to send your engine, your metabolism north so that you can burn more calories. So when women particularly say, oh, I'm just not a gym person, the injustice that you're doing yourself over the long term is a continual degrade of your muscle, which is going to have terrible problems in the future. But for now, if you're looking to manage your weight, you need to upgrade your engine. And this is a great way to think about it. I'm taking my sluggish little whippersnipper lawnmower and I'm turning it into a Ferrari. Number 5, the difference between bulldozing and building your home, to explain the difference between fat loss and muscle gain. I think this is something that a lot of men struggle with. Men particularly can lose weight quite quickly because generally they have more muscle. This is the equivalent of bulldozing your house. Literally, let's say that you've just inherited a property or you've just bought a property and it's got an old shack on it. It's going to take literally 5 minutes for a bulldozer to come in and crush that thing down. Very, very simple. That's what fat loss is like. Fat loss can be done pretty quickly and pretty simply. Doesn't mean you won't regain it. For a lot of people, the journey's harder. But for a lot of people, it's literally a matter of, okay, get into my calorie deficit for 6 to 12 months, a lot of fat comes off. Let's just say you lost 20 kilograms of fat. For you to gain 20 kilograms of muscle is basically impossible. It's impossible. People quite often say to me, "Oh, I just want to put on just a little bit of muscle mass." How much? Oh, maybe 10 kilos. Okay, let's break this down for you. 10 kilos. When we go to the pub or at home and we have a steak, it's 250 grams. That means there's 4 steaks to a kilogram. That means for you to put on 10 kilos, you'd need to add 40 sirloin steaks to your body of muscle mass. Does that give you perspective? I just want to put on 10 kilos of muscle. Like, blow that up with that analogy. And so it's like bulldozing a house. Simple and quick on the way down, but to build muscle takes time. It takes patience. It takes persistence. And that is like building your dream home. Even adding a kilo to 2 kilos of muscle will make a massive difference to your metabolism and to your overall body composition. Let's talk about number 6. How are we going so far, guys? Are these analogies actually hitting? Hopefully sinking in, and maybe we can put together a list of these. 6 is the builders and the bricks. Kind of goes with the last analogy, the builders and the bricks. When people are talking about how do I go about actually building some muscle or building some better composition, and I'm trying to explain to them the importance of protein in your diet. Now, most of us aren't great with building. We don't understand it too well, and I'm one of those. But what I do know is that if I'm going to build my dream house, I certainly need some basic foundations, right? So when we talk about building muscle and actually having better composition, there's two things that we need: enough calories and enough protein. Now, if you're a deficit in one of those two things and you're trying to build muscle mass, well, here's what's going to happen. It's the equivalent of you having either the builders or the bricks not on site while you build your house. The builders are the ones providing the energy, that is, the calories to the system, okay? The bricks is the protein. So let me explain. If you've got a ton of builders on site, but those builders don't have any of the raw material to actually create the building, doesn't matter how many builders you have, how many calories you have on site, it's not going to get built. Equally, you could have all of the bricks in the world, all of the protein in the world, but you have no manpower to actually make the thing, the energy, the calories, nothing's going to get built. So this is why, if you're kind of wondering why perhaps your body composition's not changing and you really would like to see a little bit more muscle, a little bit more lean tissue, if you're a deficit really badly in calories and you do not have enough protein, you're just going to be spinning your wheels. Does that make sense? Okay, number 7, and we've got 4 to go. Your transformation is like a bowling alley. I talked about this on the women's coaching call last week. I want you to think about your life like a bowling alley. And a lot of people, because they don't understand the bank account analogy that we talked about at the start, what they do is they think that they just need to be relentless and perfect all of the time, but they don't realize that they're setting themselves up for an absolute failure. Rather, I think if we see our life like a bowling alley, this is a much better way. So you take your kids to a game of bowling, you put the bumpers up on the side, right? But instead of just bumpers, I want you to think of them as one bumper on, say, the right-hand side is the bumper of compassion, okay? Understanding. On the other side is the bumper of kicking your own ass and discipline. There's going to be times in your life, such as you have a death in the family, you feel really, really sick, you get the flu, your kids need you, when your ball is going to slowly drift as if it's going to go off course. The bumper of compassion needs to come up and push it back to the middle, because that's a point in time where you need to show yourself some self-love. Equally, there's going to be other times when you're sitting there and you catch yourself making excuses for something that's actually not that bad, or you're making up stories in your mind. In this case, you need to give yourself a bit of that bumper that is the kick ass, that is the get you back on track. Ironically, showing yourself some self-love. In both cases, whether you need some compassion or whether you need some self-discipline, you're coming from a place of self-love and not loathing, and there's a big difference. So as this ball goes down the alley of your life, just think about these two bumpers. Sometimes you need to call yourself out and say, I'm being a lazy shit here. I'm going to drag myself to the gym even if I don't feel like it. But on other occasions, you're going to feel like, oh man, I've got nothing left in my cup. And actually what I need right now is to sit down and watch a movie and have a cup of tea with my kids and just chill the fuck out. Does that make sense? Okay, number 8 is coming. The suitcase of fat. I love this one because it's so damn simple. For someone that travels a lot, you would know that you take a suitcase, it's generally 23 kilo allowance that you've got, and you get to the airport and you have that like mini stressful time where you're trying to work out whether you're going to get charged for excess baggage or not. It happens to me literally every trip because Cordia fills our bags with everything from home. Literally, it feels like we've moved here. Anyway, we get to the counter and you've got that moment where you have to pick the suitcase up and put it on the weigh machine in front of the girl or the guy, right? It's about 23 kilos, the allowance that most people get. So when someone says I'm 23 kilos overweight, what I always tell them is, hey, listen, I want you to put that in the frame of a suitcase that you're taking on holidays. Now, sure, you can lift the suitcase, but imagine carrying that suitcase around with you, the actual suitcase around with you all day. You got to carry the suitcase to the toilet. You got to carry the suitcase while you're playing with your kids. You got to carry the suitcase while you're driving. You got to carry the suitcase while you're going for a walk on the beach, while you go to work. It's just 23 kilos. One of the big things that people talk about when they gain weight is how tired they are all the time. Well, does it make sense, using the suitcase of fat analogy, that if you're carrying 23 kilos extra, that you're going to be tired all the time because you're actually carrying a suitcase? But the big thing that I want to do here is talk about, imagine not carrying that suitcase anymore. When you talk about someone like Pam, who's lost half a suitcase, or Leslie, who's lost a suitcase and a half, or you talk about someone like Travis, who's lost 2 suitcases of fat. Like, can you understand now how much easier life becomes? It helps for me to explain it in those terms. Number 9 is life in the gap. Life in the gap is a mastermind topic we talk about, and it's a way to understand what you're going through at any one point in time. Over here is where you are currently. Over here is where you want to get to. And so you go about your journey to change your body, your mindset, your life. The vast majority of the time, obviously, if you've set about this trek, you're going to be in the gap between where you are and where you want to be. No doubt, Philippa, you are feeling this right now. Okay, you're in the gap. And so what a lot of people do is they experience the gap as lack. I'm not good enough. I haven't done enough. I'm not working hard enough. I'm not enough. But if you are ambitious and you're constantly putting yourself back into the gap over and over and over again because you constantly feel, I'm here, I want to go and experience what's here, you're going to be living 99.5% of your life in the gap. And if you live in that gap, experiencing that as lack, as I'm not good enough, you're going to start to ask yourself questions all of the time. Is this actually worth it? This fitness thing that I'm doing, this transformation thing that I'm doing, this business course that I'm doing, is it actually worth it? Because I just feel like my life is boring and fucked. And so what we've got to do is understand that when we're wading through life and we're in that gap, it's going to be tough. But we've got to be able to calibrate and understand that it feels tough because we're choosing to want more and be more than we currently have. The irony of what I talk about in the mastermind is that, and for anyone that has achieved anything big, you will know that when you get to the other side of whatever gap it is for you, we set this up as if it's going to be this monumental time of happiness and freedom forever. When I finally get to the weight that I want to get to, when I finally have the amount of money that I want to get to, when I finally get into this beautiful relationship that I want to get into, then I'll be happy. So we pin all our excitement on getting to the gap, and we get to the gap, to the other side of the gap, and guess what happens? It's momentary happiness. We have money, we have looks, we think that we're going to be happy forever. And guess what? It's very short lasting. Because the moment you say to yourself, well, if I made that amount of money, I could make this amount of money. Or if I could get down to this body fat percentage, I could get to this body fat percentage. The moment you have that thought, you're actually thrusting yourself back into the gap again. So the point here is that all of your life, you're going to be in the gap don't experience that all the time as I'm not enough. Because if you do, you're going to have a really shitty quality of life. The final analogy that I've got for you this morning or this afternoon is something that's more recent, and that is to be the goldfish. This seems to be, at least from what I've seen, helping a lot of people out. It goes back to what we talked about at the start around deposits and withdrawals. Goldfish are notorious for having no memory, being in a glass bowl about yay big and just swimming around in circles. The goldfish, or for that matter, the duck or any animal in the animal kingdom, doesn't rue the mistakes that it made an hour ago, or a year ago, or a fucking decade ago, like humans do. So what really, really is a beneficial thing is to think about yourself or remind yourself of the phrase, just be the goldfish. When you go out and you accidentally get pissed and you didn't actually want to do that, you lost your awareness for a moment. But that's okay. You always have the ability to press reset each Monday morning. In fact, you have the ability to press reset every weekday morning, every weekend morning, because the thing that kills most people's transformation is they're not the goldfish. They are the human. They made a mistake 10 years ago and they're still punishing and paying for themselves to this day. The past does not dictate your future unless you let it. So what we need to do is to be the goldfish. Every day, press reset, start the day new after a good sleep, and get back into it again. And this is the best way to live. So guys, I've just given you 10 of my best analogies. The reason I've run through each of those is just to show you that if we can take an idea that's otherwise quite complicated and just shrink it down to something that's a bit more relatable, this is really what the fitness industry should be doing for people, but they don't want to do it for people because guess what? If we give you all the answers, then you will be free of us. What a fucking joke. When we started Better Body Academy 4 years ago, our goal was to become educational. That's the major transformation that we want to have. And as much as it sucks when someone decides to leave the academy, I have to remind myself that this is happening because this person has transformed and they feel like they've got the tools. Does this make sense? So guys, on that note, I'm going to love you and leave you. Happy to stick around and discuss with anyone else that wants to continue the chat after this podcast. And of course, this has been the Better Body Academy podcast coming to you on a Monday morning Australian time. I'll see you guys in the next episode. All right, team. Feeling really dry this morning. I didn't even have any beers yesterday. That's quite weird. Anyway, how was that? Okay. I really love this whole analogy thing because my goal and the goal of our coaches and this entire academy is to try to make information that's seemingly opaque and kind of difficult to understand clearer and more able to be followed. Morning, guys. Going to listen on replay because I was just listening to you and Matt Kong. Oh, mate, he is a tremendous human. Such a happy-go-lucky guy. So, yeah, it was a good podcast as well. For anyone that's not listening to the podcast, you can literally just go on to pretty much anywhere you can listen to podcasts, Apple, Google, Spotify, and just search Better Body Academy podcast and you'll find 250 plus episodes. If you can put up with my voice, which is not a great voice for radio, but if you can put up with my voice for a while, you'll learn some incredible things. And at the end of the day, you know what? Like, here's the big thing about what coaching is meant to be about. It's meant to be about a transfer of information. I have a number of coaches. I suck what they have got, get it into my mind, implement that. I take what I know, pass that information over to you, the guys that want to learn and listen, and eventually that stuff starts to become caught in your mind. You start to understand these analogies, and then you start to teach them to your kids. Imagine something as simple as teaching your kid after he'd or she'd had a bad test result or a bad night's sleep or a tantrum or whatever it is, and you could teach your kiddo, hey, you know what? Like, just press reset. Be the goldfish. You don't need to continue, torching yourself about what you think is a mistake. This is part of our learning process. Just be the goldfish. Something like that analogy is something that I think a kid could really understand and perhaps benefit from. Anyway, guys, if there's no questions this morning, hopefully that was helpful. Kickstarting your Monday on the right day, right way. I appreciate you all, and we will chat soon.